Thank you, Your Honor. May I proceed with the
Yes.
administrative matters? May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you. Your Honor, pursuant to a stipulation with the prosecution, I would like to mark and enter into evidence 3 documents. These are each portions of a March 2025 report prepared by Mr. Whiffin. The first one.
So, yes, they can come into evidence.
Right.
They can come into evidence. There's a stipulation. So
And
we
so-
can mark it as the next exhibit.
If we can, that's page 29 for the next exhibit.
You want them marked separately?
Separately, please. The next exhibit will be pages 77 and 78 of the same report.
Okay.
The third and last is page 43 and page 44. May I, Your Honor?
Yes, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Whiffin. I don't believe we've had the pleasure of meeting.
Good afternoon.
Cell phone data, when correct and when correctly analyzed, can help tell a story of what may have happened under various circumstances, correct?
Correct.
And in cases like this, literally seconds on cell phone data can be significant, correct?
Correct.
What I'd like to do is to go back to your PowerPoint presentation and specifically go to the timeline that you had gone through with Mr. Brennan, and rather than repeating everything, there'll be select aspects of the timeline I'm going to reference, and with the court's permission, we will put the timeline back on that's already in evidence.
Okay.
Thank you. So what I'd like to do is to start with page 70, which we have as 78 of the deck. If you could, Mr. Wolf, go to that. And what I'd like to do, if I could please, Mr. Whiffin, is draw your attention to the very last entry, which says at the bottom, location 122438, and it indicates description, first location record showing speed of 0. Do you see that, sir?
I do.
And this is the arrival of John O'Keefe's phone at 34 Fairview, correct?
Correct.
If we could go to the next page, please. We have up at the top 12:24:59, about 21 seconds later after arrival, we have device unlock with Face ID, correct?
Correct.
Is it possible for anyone other than John to unlock that device with Face ID?
If a secondary user was set up,
Do you have any indication that a second user was set up on John's mobile phone?
I never looked at that.
I'm sorry,
I never looked to see if a secondary user was set up.
in terms of the next entry, 12:25:08, it says, read message, you coming here? With 3 question marks. What I'd like to do, because you did not note who that was from, but I want to go back a few slides so we can identify who that message was from. We could go back to 76, please, Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
So in the last line there, message reading left to right 12:20:49, it says message received from someone listed in context as Brian Higgins. Do you see that?
Correct.
So if we could go back to slide 80, excuse me, if we could go back to slide 79, that phone reading the message, you coming here, is reading the message from Brian Higgins, correct?
Correct.
But you didn't note that in the timeline that was from Brian Higgins, correct?
No, I was just highlighting the fact that a message was read and that the contents of the message were you coming here.
But you didn't note in this entry, when it was read by John, that message was from Brian Higgins, correct?
Correct.
Now, the next entry, lock, again, I'm always going to be reading left to right unless otherwise indicated, sir, is a time of 12:25:09. And it says, device locked with lock button.
Yes.
You see that, sir?
I do.
That requires human volitional conduct. In other words, someone has to actually manipulate their phone and hit it, right?
Correct.
Now, at this particular point, isn't it correct that in your report that you mentioned in your March 2025 report, that you had more of a description of what was happening at this time with the phone, namely, device bearing shifts to a westerly direction as location records also show the device moving west from the roadside towards the house. Isn't that what you had in your report?
Yes, that's covered in the location section of this report, the PowerPoint.
So there is no statement in this timeline under any type where you had concluded that at this time the record showed that the device was moving west from the roadside towards the house, correct?
The location latitude, longitude was moving westerly, but at the same time, the accuracy was increasing. So it didn't intrinsically prove the device was moving.
My question, Mr. Whiffin, is straightforward in this sense, that I'm just looking for an answer of whether on this timeline you included the analysis that you had in your report that the device at this time was moving west from the roadside towards the house. Did you include it in that timeline?
No, I left that out of the timeline.
Next entry, 2733. That's 12/27/33. You note that there's a message received from Jen McCabe. Here, exclamation point, question mark. You see that, sir?
Correct.
Now, at this point, you have two people in just 2.5 minutes, Brian Higgins and Jen McCabe, trying to find out if the John is coming to 34 Fairview. Is that a fair conclusion?
It appears so.
I'll allow it.
Is that a fair conclusion?
It would appear so, yes.
So just because of the colloquy that occurred, I want to repeat the question. Now you have, at this point, at 12/27/33, you have two people, Brian Higgins and Jennifer McCabe, in just 2.5 minutes, trying to find out if John, or the phone, is coming to, or if John is coming to 34 Fairview.
Sustained. Ask it differently, Mr. Lesser.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, at this point, you have two people trying to find out if John is coming to 34 Fairview, correct? Objection.
Sustained.
Mr. Whiffin, in terms of the information at this stage, there are two communications with Mr. O'Keefe on this phone, and that is, they're trying to find, I'll rephrase it. There are two communications, one from Jennifer McCabe and one from Brian Higgins, correct?
Correct.
Now let's go to the next deck 80, please, Mr. Wolt. This is 12/27/45, device unlocked with Face ID, correct?
Correct.
And then right under that is 122748. It says read message, which it says here, and is it correct that that is the message that was sent by Jennifer McCabe?
Correct. I'd just like to point out it says read message, not read message.
Read message, thank you. And that, the fact that Jen McCabe sent that message and that it was read was not indicated in your timeline at this point, correct?
Sorry, repeat that question.
Yes, you did not, it does not appear in that timeline that you've drafted that that message that was read was from Jennifer McCabe, is
Correct.
it?
Correct.
Next entry, 2750, device locked with lock button. Next entry down that, 2937, Doppler pocket state. And I want to be clear. Does Doppler pocket state mean that someone takes an iPhone, because up above there's read messages we went through on 2748. So if somebody reads the message and then it goes at 2937 into Doppler pocket state, does that mean someone has, for example, put it in their pocket?
No.
What does it mean that's a pocket state?
So the only times that I was able to cause a pocket state to be recorded is when the camera was blocked and when the device received a phone call or was picked up in a particular way, so that the device thinks that you're about to try to use it. If the camera is not blocked from the outset, then nothing's recorded at all. And in order to get the pocket state cleared, the camera must be blocked to begin with. So again, you have to receive a phone call with it in your pocket and remove it in order to get a pocket state cleared.
Thank you, because that helped me, because that's exactly where I was going with the next question, which is pocket state cleared. What did you conclude from 2937 to 2942 that it was in pocket state and then pocket state cleared?
There was some activity on the device that caused the pocket state to be checked. The device was in a pocket state up until 2942, when whatever was obstructing the camera was removed.
Next entry is a call at 12:29:44, and that you state is an incoming call from Jen McCabe, so there you do indicate the name, and you say answered 7 seconds, correct?
Correct.
Is the phone at this time that there's an incoming call from Jen McCabe that is answered out in front of 34 Fairview?
Yes, it would be according to the location data.
Right. So now we have at 12:29:44, the phone's out in front of 34 Fairview. There's an incoming call from Jen McCabe. It's answered. 7 seconds is how long the duration of the call was. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then 12:29:51, incoming call ends, and that's end of that 7 second duration.
Correct.
So you've concluded that this was a call that was indeed answered by the user of the phone, correct?
Correct.
Now let's go to Mr. Wolk 81, which is starting up at the top of 12:31:47. There is, as you indicate, an iMessage received from someone with a contact named Jen McCabe. You see that, sir?
I do.
Can you just state for the jury what an iMessage is?
An iMessage is essentially a text message sent primarily from iPhone to iPhone via the Apple servers, not like an SMS message which goes through carriers.
And is it correct that the message that was received from Jen McCabe said, from a contact Jen McCabe, says, "Pull behind me"?
Correct.
And then at 12:31:52, we're back to Doppler pocket state, correct?
Correct.
Now let's go to the next entry, which is deck 82, it's under health type. And what I want to do is see if we can clarify. The Commonwealth on direct examination, and multiple times referred to this as healthcare data. Do you remember hearing that healthcare data term?
I do.
Is that a correct term? Is it healthcare data or is it health data?
It is health data.
So it's incorrect to refer to this as healthcare data, correct?
Healthcare data is encompassed within Apple Health, but primarily if we're talking about steps being taken, it would just be health data.
Right. So the correct parlance is health data,
Yes.
correct? Particularly when we're getting to steps, is that correct?
Correct.
It's important to be precise about the parlance.
Yes.
So in this entry, 123156, you state that there's the start of health event, quote, 36 steps / 25 meters, correct?
Correct.
Is it accurate to say that because we're in the United States and we don't work on the metric system, that 25 meters is about 84 feet? Are you able to make that calculation?
It's approximately that, yeah.
Right. Would you accept approximately
I
84
accept.
feet? So as we discuss meters, we can go to feet and
Yes.
about 84
I would accept
feet.
it approximately 3 times 25.
Right.
But
So, in your report of March 2025, isn't it correct that for this time, you stated that the device began moving for a period of 20 seconds, correct?
yes.
So, again, your conclusion from your analysis is, with these 36 steps, the device at this point began moving. Correct?
Yes, correct.
Next entry. 123203. Pocket state cleared. Correct?
Correct.
So does that mean that there's some human activity going on, interaction with the phone, or not?
It could have been a received phone call. It could have been movement of the phone to be lifted.
But something has happened.
But something's
correct?
happened, yeah.
Next, 123204, device unlocked with Face ID, correct?
Correct.
And then at 123205, it states application focus messages.
Yes.
Can you clarify what that means in terms of what is happening with the phone for the jury?
Yep. So at 32 minutes and 5 seconds, the messages application was in focus on screen. So it was the application that was being used by the user at that time.
Now, the next entry is message 123206, and it states red message, quote, pull behind me, close quote, correct?
Correct.
Now, you don't indicate who that message is from in your timeline, but that's the message that was sent by Jennifer McCabe at 123147, correct?
Correct.
Next entry is application lock at 123209, and you've got here end application focus, and then you state device lock with lock button for the last time, correct?
Correct.
So that's again pressing the side button on the iPhone that locks it.
Correct.
And that requires human conduct, human interaction with the phone, correct?
Correct.
And then the next entry under health data at 123216, that is 7 seconds after the lock. It's the end of the health event of 36 steps, 25 meters, and as we agreed, approximately 84 feet, correct?
Correct.
So, in terms of the steps, I want to turn to some further information with regard to your previous, the report that you mentioned on direct, which is the March 2025 report. Your Honor indicated a time for the break, and I'm going to go into a little bit of different area. Would you like me to keep continuing?
All right, Mr. Leslie. Folks, we'll stop. Turning lights, please.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Morning, Mr. Whiffin,
Good morning.
and welcome back.
Thank you.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Whiffin, I've just handed you, which is in evidence as Exhibit 43, and this is a portion of your March 2025 report. If you could just take a moment to look at it, and when you've had a fair opportunity to do that, I'd ask you to turn to page 28.
Okay.
And just, if you could, sir, just pick up your head and let me know when you're ready to proceed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You ready, Mr. Whiffin?
I am.
Thank you. So what I'd like to do is to, with Your Honor's permission, is to publish pages 28, 29, and 30 and start with page 28.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Wolf? And if you could enlarge the text down below as much as you can so the jury can see it. Thank you, Mr. Wolf. So, Mr. Whiffin, this summary section of your report is a summary of the location section that you wrote in your March 2025 report, correct?
That's correct.
And it states the location data on this device contains a vast number of records while traveling between 12/19/33 and 12/24/38. These records all have a high horizontal accuracy value as well as bearing and speed information which conforms to the streets being traveled. Next paragraph. The device arrived outside 34 Fairview at 12/24/38 where it remained static for about 30 seconds. Do you see that, sir?
I do, yes.
And did I read that correctly?
You did.
Did I read that correctly?
Sorry, yes, you did.
Yeah, so at the end of it says, show the device moving west from the roadside towards the house. That's what you wrote, correct?
Correct.
I would like you to, Mr. Wilk, if we could switch back to the timeline of Mr. Whiffin that we had published yesterday in Deck 79. Mr. Whiffin, if you could please, we just read that portion of your report that says at 25:30 the device bearing shifts to a westerly direction as location records also show the device moving west from the roadside towards the house. Did you put that in your timeline?
I did not.
It's kind of important information, isn't it?
I believe with the declining accuracy, the value that those records provided was more limited.
But it was important enough for you to write it in your report, but you didn't put it in the timeline, correct?
Correct.
Now if you could continue on your report, page 29, Mr. Wolk, if we could put, and we're going to be flipping back and forth between the timeline in your report.
Okay.
If we could go to page 29, enlarge it, the text, so the jury is able to read it along with us. We're going to start from the top. So the next says, from the combination of device location and bearing, it does appear that the device started to move towards the house. However, since the bearing information appears to be based on the location records rather than the direction the device is facing, it is difficult to say with any degree of certainty if the device actually moved. Did I read that correctly?
You did.
So the first part is again a statement that the device has started to move toward the house. Now, if we could go to the next paragraph. This location data is immediately followed by 12 minutes of low accuracy records which offer no reliable location information. So I just want to make sure I've got the time period here right. The 12 minutes is from 12:25, correct?
Yes.
And
that's
so
correct.
12:25 plus 12 is 12:37. So the range we're talking about here is from 12:25 through 12:37, correct?
Correct.
Then, if we could go to, Mr. Wolk, please, back to the timeline, slide 82. So I want to discuss with you the very top entry, Health 12/31/56, where you have the entry, start of health event, 36 steps, 25 meters, and yesterday we agreed 25 meters is approximately 84 feet, correct?
Correct.
And that is what you have in the timeline. Let's understand what that means. At that time period, 12/31/56, do you recall writing in a March 2025 report that the device began moving for a period of 20 seconds?
Related to the location data, I believe.
Yes.
Yes.
Now if we could, Mr. Wolk, go back to page 29 of the report. So what I want to do is go back to that paragraph up at the top from the combination of the device. From the combination of device location and bearing, it does appear that the device started to move toward the house. However, since the bearing information appears based on the location records rather than the direction the device is facing, it is difficult to say with any degree of certainty if the device actually moved. So you're talking about difficulty saying with certainty, correct?
Correct.
But it is certainly possible that the device was at that location and was moving toward the house. That's possible, correct?
Based on location data, yes.
Now what I'd like to do, please, is to go, stay on that report, and the third paragraph says, the reason for such low accuracy location data at this time is not known, as there are many possible reasons why the accuracy was be reduced. There's a little grammar issue there, but
Correct.
in fairness to you, sir, we do that when we write long reports. But I think that your intention here is, why the accuracy is reduced at this point, correct?
Yes. Correct.
Thank you. This could include reasons such as the device entered a building-covered area, the result of weather conditions, geography, poor connectivity, or interference, to name a few. So those are the reasons you gave which could contribute to some low accuracy, correct?
Correct.
And interesting, the very first reason you gave is that the device could be entering a building or covered area. And that phraseology could include a house, correct?
Correct.
It could include a garage attached to the house, correct?
Correct.
And it could include the house at 34 Fairview, and it could include the garage attached to the house at 34 Fairview, because both of those are buildings or covered areas, correct?
Correct.
Then you go on in the next paragraph to say it is known that the device was not being used at this time, and is this time that include that 12:37, 12-minute range, 12:25 to 12:37?
Yes, it was not being used for location purposes.
So that's another reason why, right, the accuracy could be a little bit on the lower side.
Correct.
Now, the next paragraph says, at 12:38:13, when the device begins recording higher, and that's relative to what it was recording before. It's not that it's high, but it's higher than what it was just moments before.
Correct.
The data centers on a location slightly closer to the house than the roadside. Although several records show the same center coordinate with differing accuracy radii. Some of these location records are shown in the map below in white. So let's go down and look at what you had in your report for the area in white. In the area in white that you're referring to, there are two white circles, the largest one there. This, in fact, was a depiction that you included in your report on page 29, correct?
Correct.
Interesting and notable, you did not include that depiction in your timeline that you discussed with the jury yesterday, did you?
I did not know.
But it was important enough for you to put that depiction in your report, correct?
Correct.
And notably, the larger white circle covers a substantial amount of the house at 34 Fairview, correct?
Correct.
So, given your testimony on direct yesterday with Attorney Brennan, the phone of John O'Keefe, according to this depiction, could be anywhere within the largest white circle, correct?
Correct.
And this depiction was not offered by you or the Commonwealth in your presentation to the jury yesterday, correct?
Correct. Not in the PowerPoint.
Now, if we could go back, Mr. Wolk, to page 29 of your report, into the text, and if we can enlarge the text just a little bit, please, for the jury, Mr. Wolk. So, the paragraph that begins with at 12:38:13, when the device begins recording higher accuracy information, again, the data centers on a location slightly closer to the house than the roadside, although several records show the same center coordinate with differing accuracy radii. Some of these location records are shown on the map in white below. And I repeated that just to tether, to connect this part of the text to that diagram with the big white circle. Have I done that correctly?
Yes, correct.
Thank you, sir. The next paragraph. Over the next few hours, the GPS coordinate and the associated accuracy radius jumps around numerous times between the house and the road. Did I read that correctly?
Correct.
And therefore, over the next few hours, according to your report, the phone of John O'Keefe could be in the house, correct?
Based on the low accuracy information, yes.
The answer is yes.
Yes.
The next paragraph. Well, we'll stop there for a moment, and I would like to, Mr. Wolf, go down, scroll please, to that diagram that's right below that text again. Yesterday, you discussed Waze, the Waze application with Attorney Brennan, correct?
Correct.
And you stated that Waze location data is more accurate than the data that comes from the Apple apps like health data and location, correct?
Incorrect, no.
I'm sorry. Is Waze location data, in your view, accurate location data?
There isn't really a thing such as Waze location data.
I'm having trouble hearing.
Waze location data doesn't really exist. Waze is requesting location data from location services, and location services would respond with high accuracy information.
Okay, I appreciate that correction. So, when someone is using a Waze application, is the information they get through that Waze app accurate?
It tries to be accurate, yes.
And as a general matter, is the Waze application more accurate than the Apple information regarding location?
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing because it's coming essentially from the same source, correct?
Yes, Apple provides that information to Waze.
Right. So you had testified yesterday that at a certain point, the Waze application ceased functioning, correct?
Correct.
But just because it ceased functioning, the Waze, the Apple applications were still taking effect, and that's why you could make this depiction on this item that is on the screen now, correct?
Correct.
If we could, Mr. Wolk, go to page 30. What I'd like to highlight, please, is the text. So if we can enlarge it up at the top. So you then state, while location data from this data source, cache SQLite, is usually able to identify the location of the device with a high degree of accuracy and reliability, these records are so close that making a distinction between the device's actual location on the front garden is impossible, correct?
Correct.
Your words, impossible.
Correct.
Did you provide any of the information in that paragraph in your timeline or to the jury in your direct testimony yesterday?
Not in the PowerPoint, no.
Next paragraph. If the location records are limited to just the records between 0025, which is 12:25, and 6 a.m. and with an accuracy radius of 10 meters or less, there are 46 records, all of which fall within the red circle shown below. Go ahead, Mr. Wolk, if you could scroll down. And that is the only depiction there that you included in your timeline yesterday, correct?
Correct.
So you took one of two depictions in your summary of the location, this one, in terms of your timeline presentation, correct?
Correct.
Now, in terms of the timeline, and Mr. Wolk, if we could go back to the previous with the other depiction. It's on page 29. If we could enlarge that depiction, please. So, you testified that the flagpole in the fire hydrant are more down toward the small black circle. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
And yesterday, you rendered an opinion that you believed that the phone was mostly in the location by the flagpole in the fire hydrant, correct?
Objection.
I'm going to see counsel at sidebar for a minute, please.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. If we could dim the lights again, please. Thank you. So, if we can enlarge that depiction. So, yesterday, Mr. Whiffin, you focused your testimony and your opinions on the smaller black circle, correct?
Correct.
And you didn't discuss at all or disclose at all this depiction, and therefore didn't discuss or disclose at all the larger white circle, correct?
Not when discussing my overall opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
So the answer
Is no.
right. So the fair way to interpret, and this is what you put in your report, this is your depiction, is that, and based upon what you said yesterday, the phone could be at the very edge of the top of the circle, correct?
Correct.
And the phone could also be at any point, so you can, in theory, put a phone anywhere around the very edges of that entire circle, correct?
There's caveats to that, but yes.
Well, I'm just asking
Yes.
you that according to your testimony yesterday in this depiction, the phone could be anywhere in that location
Yes.
within the area of that white circle.
Correct.
I would like to now go back to the timeline, Mr. Wolf, where we had left off, which is slide 82. And at the very top entry, you have health, time 31:56, and then the description, start of health event, 36 steps, 25 meters, and we agreed about 84 feet. And this is where the device began moving toward the house for a period of 20 seconds. Is that correct?
It's the time that 36 steps started to be recorded. I've got no idea of the direction of travel.
I want to focus on the time, 12:31:56. Are you aware that a firm called Apperture, on behalf of the Commonwealth, has submitted a report that states that there was a trigger event at 12:31:56 that they refer to as the supposed collision? Are you aware of that?
Objection.
Sustained.
I recall seeing a report. Sorry.
You don't have to answer that.
Sorry, apologies.
That's okay.
Mr. Whiffin, are you familiar with a firm called Apperture?
I'm vaguely aware of them. I've heard of them once.
Are you familiar with a person by the name of Dr. Judson Welcher?
I'm not, no.
But you're familiar with the firm Apperture?
I am.
And do you know that the Apperture firm is working on this case?
That's the only reason I'm aware of this company.
Right. And do you know that the Apperture firm has used your data in your report? Do you know that?
I believe I saw something about that.
Do you believe you saw something, or do you know that they've used your data for a report in this matter?
I recall seeing a report. I don't recall whether it was my data that was being referenced.
Do you recall seeing a report from Apperture?
I do.
So you reviewed a report from Apperture.
Several months ago, yes.
And did you read the whole report?
It was a PowerPoint presentation, I believe.
Yes.
Yes, I reviewed it.
And you recall reading that entire PowerPoint presentation?
I don't recall what it said, but I remember reading through it.
Fair enough. Do you remember, as you sit here today, reading about a trigger of a number 1162-2? Do you recall reading that?
I recall seeing reference to a trigger event.
What did you understand the Apperture firm that's retained by the Commonwealth, what do you understand they meant by trigger 1162-2?
Objection.
Sustained.
Do you recall the specific slide that discussed a trigger?
Objection.
Do you recall that, Mr. Whiffin?
Very vaguely.
Would it help your recollection if I showed you a slide from that report that you said you reviewed to refresh your recollection?
I object.
All right, so why don't I see counsel at sidebar? Bring that with you, Mr. Alessi, please.
Mr. Whiffin, I'm handing you this. Excuse me, Mr. Brennan. I'm handing you this document.
Thank you.
May I stand by the witness?
Sure.
Tell me when you've had a fair opportunity to take a look at that.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Whiffin, does that refresh your recollection with regard to an Apperture report that discusses a trigger of 1162-2?
It does, thank you.
Pardon me?
It does, thank you.
And how does it refresh your recollection?
I remember seeing that several months ago.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. There's a blower on here that I'm having trouble hearing Mr. Whiffin. If you, sir, could bring the mic, it's not your fault. If you could bring it and speak a little louder, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I recall seeing that as part of the report that I read 2 months ago.
And you recall the time of 12:31:38 now, correct?
Correct.
Let's go back to your timeline. 82. So you just spoke about a trigger 1162-2 associated with a time of 12:31:38, and we are now at the timeline of 12:31:56, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
We are now going back to the timeline, deck 82, and you see up at the top where it says health 31:56. You see that, sir?
I do.
And then it says start of health event, 36 steps, 25 meters, which we have said is 84 feet or so. And this is when the device begins moving, correct?
Correct.
And that is after the trigger of 1162-2, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Let's go to the next entry on the timeline, which is 12:32:03. You see that? That's Doppler.
I do.
And then you state pocket state cleared. Is the phone at that time in a pocket?
It's impossible for me to say. I can say that the camera was blocked, but I don't know what was blocking it.
You're saying at this point the camera is blocked?
It had been blocked, and at that point, it became unblocked.
So at this point, it became unblocked from a previous block status, correct?
Yes.
Does there have to be some human manipulation of the phone at 12:32:03 for that to happen?
Technically not. There are scenarios that wouldn't require it.
Is it more likely than not that there had to have been some human contact in action for this pocket state clearing event to occur?
Yes.
12:32:04 is the next. It's a type unlock. Device unlock with Face ID. You see that, sir?
I do.
Is there some human action that has to occur for the device to unlock with Face ID?
Typically, you must be paying attention to the phone.
Sorry, sir?
You must be paying attention to the phone, assuming that that setting's enabled.
So someone had to be looking at the phone.
Yes.
At 12:32:05, application focus. What does that mean?
That the messages application was at the foreground of the device being used.
Next entry, 12:32:06. We discussed this. It says read message, pull behind me, and that is associated with a Jen McCabe. It's the Jen McCabe message of 31:47, correct?
Correct.
And does a human have to be reading that for that entry to be made?
The message needs to be on screen. If the conversation with Jen McCabe was already on screen when the device was unlocked, then that message would automatically be considered read.
Next entry, app lock, 12:32:09, end application focuses messages, and then it says device locked with lock button for the last time. That requires human interaction with the phone, correct?
Correct.
And it actually requires somebody to take the cell phone and press the side button to do that, correct?
It does, yes.
So there has to be some degree of coordination for that to occur, for a human to be able to have something that hits that button, correct?
Certainly, yes.
Do you understand what a term fine motor skill means? Do you
Yes.
understand that? And would that person have to be using fine motor skills to do that?
Yes.
Next entry, 12:32:16. End of health event, 36 steps, 25 meters, again 84 feet. That is in your timeline because that's when you believe the end of the health event, the end of the 36 steps occurred, correct?
That is the time that the device data shows the end of the health event, yes.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you recall writing in your March 2025 report the following? The final health activity of note on John's phone can be seen to have occurred between 12:31:56 and 12:32:16, during which 36 steps were recorded, covering a distance of 25.4 meters, again at 84 feet, according to healthdbsecure.db. Do you recall writing that?
I do.
And you used in your report 36 steps were recorded covering a distance of 25.4 meters or 84 feet, correct?
Correct.
Do you know a trooper named Nicholas Guarino?
I'm aware of him, yes.
Are you a little more than aware of him? You've worked with him on this case, haven't you?
He sent me some of the files related to it, but further than that, I've got no relationship with him.
But isn't someone sending you files on a case you're working on, working with the person? Isn't that a fair conclusion?
It could be.
Do you recall reading any reports of Nicholas Guarino?
I don't recall reading a report by Nick.
Does that mean you didn't read it, or you just don't recall reading it?
I honestly can't remember if I did or not. I remember some of the reports that I read for this case. I don't recall if one was by Nick.
Would it refresh your recollection if I showed you a portion of his report to determine whether you would have read it?
Please.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes. Show Mr. Brennan?
Yes. I just want to make sure I got the entire report. Mr. Whiffin?
Thank you.
And may I stand by the witness, Your Honor? Thank you. I am providing you with a document, and I would ask if that refreshes your recollection as to whether you've read a report of Mr. Guarino.
A report or this report?
This report. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
I don't recall ever seeing this report.
Have you ever had any conversations with Trooper Nicholas Guarino?
Very briefly.
But you had, the answer is yes.
Yes.
Did Trooper Guarino tell you that he measured the distance from the flagpole to the front door and it was 72 feet? Did he ever tell you that?
Object to the floor.
Sustain.
Did you ever have a conversation with Trooper Nick Guarino about the distance from the flagpole to the front door of 34 Fairview?
Maybe.
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 So is it maybe then you had a conversation with him in which he stated to you that that distance is 72 feet?
It's maybe.
So if we go back to what we were discussing earlier about the steps and the distance covered, and this is in your report of March 2025, where we've talked about this, and it's the final health activity of note on John's phone can be seen to have occurred between 12:31:56 and 12:32:16.
Is this the correct slide?
No, it's
So
not.
let's take it down.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let me start that over. The final health activity of note on John's phone could be seen to have occurred between 12:31:56 and 12:32:16, during which 36 steps were recorded, covering a distance of 5.4 meters, or 84 feet. 84 feet is greater than 72 feet, correct?
Correct.
So if the distance from the flagpole to the front of the house is 72 feet, and your report notes steps, 36 steps covering a distance of 84 feet, that would put those steps within the house, correct?
It would.
Let's continue on with the timeline. We now have Doppler 1233:14, and then Doppler pocket state. Do you recall in your report adding a word to this, that your report said pocket state detected? Do you recall writing that?
More than likely, yes.
Yes. But the detected word is not on that slide, is it?
It's not, no.
What does pocket state detected mean?
There was an active check by the Doppler function, and it detected that it was in a pocket state.
I would now like to change gears a bit and go to temperature with an iPhone. You recall that discussion in your direct testimony?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Wilk, if we could please have the slide deck, but a different page, slide 60. And just tee it up, but please don't put it on the screen yet. iPhones don't record ambient or the environmental temperature where the phone may be at any given time, correct?
Correct.
But the iPhones, including the iPhone of John O'Keefe, log the temperature of the battery inside of it, correct?
Correct.
And as a result of that function, examiners and folks like you can use the battery temperature of an iPhone to identify increases or decreases in temperature within the environment that the iPhone is physically located in. True?
I believe so, yes.
And that's right out of your report, right? Your March 2025 report makes that very statement, correct?
Yes.
The battery temperature of an iPhone generally matches the pattern of the rise and the fall of the thermometer temperature, correct?
From my testing, yes.
And when an iPhone is in a lock state with little activity occurring on the device, the battery temperature is heavily affected by the ambient temperature in the environment, again, matching the pattern of the rise and the fall of the thermometer temperature, right?
Correct.
And what I just read is right out of your March 2025 report, correct?
It sounds like it is, yes.
And you actually established this in various temperature testing and test scenarios in your March 2025 report, correct?
Correct.
Let's discuss those two tests. You had an appendix to your report that discussed two test scenarios with regard to temperature, correct?
Correct.
Can
And
I
that
just
was
ask,
append-
I'm sorry, Mr. Whiffin, do you have your report with you, sir?
I don't have a copy of it.
I'd be happy to provide him with a copy of his report so we can have him follow along.
I think that's great, thank you.
Okay, sure.
Would that be helpful, Mr. Whiffin?
Very, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, you're all right.
Yes.
Thank you.
There you go. And, Mr. Whiffin, feel free at any time to reference that report.
Thank you.
And if you could, turn to page 77.
Okay.
So, are you ready, sir?
I am, yes.
Thank you. So let's look at test scenario one. Test scenario one, you took an iPhone, if I'm remembering correctly, same model as John O'Keefe's?
I believe John O'Keefe's was iPhone 11. I used an iPhone 10.
But sufficiently
Very similar.
similar for purposes of this experiment?
Correct.
Or this
It's the
test?
same iOS version.
Yes. So it's the same iOS version, the software inside the phone, just a different model.
Yes.
And it's the software that's important for this test, correct?
I believe so.
So you state that you placed the iPhone inside a freezer, correct?
Correct.
And now if we could, Mr. Woke, if we can put that, do we have that in would be page 77? And if we could enlarge that chart, please. Enlarge it just a little bit more. We're not concerned with the text at this point, so we can just get the chart as large as possible. Thank you. Thank you. So what I'd like to do is focus on January 29th. Excuse me. This is your experiment. When did you do test scenario one, approximately, the date?
This is a good question. It was sometime probably in December last year.
I'm sorry.
In December last year, I believe.
December 2024.
Correct.
So what you did here was you took the phone, you put it inside a freezer. What was the temperature of the freezer?
I actually don't know.
But it was a freezer.
It was freezing. Yes.
It is sort of your just regular freezer that everybody has.
A regular chest
Nothing
freezer.
special about
No.
it. Let's look at some of the data that you have from it. Let's start at the 1710 time frame, where it's placed in the freezer, and you've got, and we're going to go with Fahrenheit, if that's okay with you.
Of course, yes.
Thank you. 73.4 degrees, correct?
Correct.
And then if you go all the way down to the 1725, which would be 15 minutes, correct?
Correct.
Can you state what the drop in temperature is of the battery temperature in just 15 minutes in a freezer?
Approximately 50 degrees Fahrenheit.
So it drops 50 degrees Fahrenheit in just 15 minutes.
Correct.
And is it fair to say that if you do the math, that that's about a little over 3.5 degrees per minute? And if Your Honor, if he wants to use a calculator, or just accept my estimate, whatever Your Honor thinks is appropriate.
However you can answer the question, Mr.
I'm happy to accept your answer. That's fine.
Let me just make sure. I have a moment, Your Honor. 3.33, would that sound fair, sir?
That sounds fair.
So it's about 3.3 degrees Fahrenheit per minute drop, correct?
Correct.
Now let's go to the next page of your report, page 78, where test scenario 2. And in test scenario 2, you took the same phone with the same software and you placed it outside at a temperature of 33.8 degrees Fahrenheit, correct?
Correct.
So if we take the time that we start out with a control temperature, and then we've got a battery temperature at 9:02, and this is the battery temperature of the iPhone, correct?
Correct.
And we've got 66.2 degrees Fahrenheit, correct?
Correct.
So is it fair to call that a baseline for purposes of what this chart is?
The device had already been outside for 2 minutes at that point, but yes.
Okay, so we'll just refer to 66.2. And then if we go from 9:02 down to 9:15, a period of 13 minutes, correct?
Correct.
So at 33.8 degrees and 13 minutes, what is the drop in temperature in degrees? What's the drop?
Sorry, between the 9:02 and the 9:15?
Right. So does it go from 66.2 to 35.6?
It does.
And sir, so I don't have to have you do a math on the fly. I've calculated that drop at 30.6. Does that sound about right?
That sounds correct, yes.
So you got a drop of 30.6 degrees in just 13 minutes at an outside temperature of 33.8, correct?
Correct.
We're going to come back to this, but what I'd like to do is to compare these two test scenarios. The one we just saw, 33 degrees Fahrenheit, where it dropped 30.6 degrees in just 13 minutes, again at an outdoor temperature of 33.8, and then test scenario 1 in a freezer, where it dropped 61.2 degrees in just 15 minutes. Now let's go to the slide 60, which was in your slide presentation yesterday, of what you stated was the temperature change in the iPhone of John O'Keefe on the morning of January 29th. You with me, sir?
Yep.
Thank you. So if we start out at 12:13, we see a battery temperature of 82 degrees Fahrenheit, correct?
Correct.
Then it drops a little bit to 77, a little bit to 72. And what I want to focus on is keeping the starting point for my questions here at the 12:37 time period on the morning of January 29th. And that's 72 degrees Fahrenheit, correct?
Correct.
So if you take the time period from 12:37 to 12:53, that's a 15-minute interval, correct?
Correct.
The phone only drops 11 degrees Fahrenheit in 15 minutes, correct?
Correct.
If you then go to 12:37 and give it a little bit more time, down to 1:36 a.m., the temperature, and that's just about an hour, right?
Correct.
And the temperature drops from 72 to 50, only 22-degree drop in an hour, correct?
Correct.
Now, if you compare this chart in the drop in temperature, for example, 12:37, 12:53, in 15 minutes, it's only dropping 11 degrees, to your experiments, where with the first scenario with the freezer, it dropped 50 degrees in a 15-minute period. Is it correct to say that there was a much more dramatic drop in temperature in your test scenario 1 than what actually occurred on John O'Keefe's phone for the time period we just covered in January 29th?
Yes.
And then with regard to even test scenario 2, where the temperature is 33.8 degrees, that's the ambient, the outdoor temperature, right? At that temperature, just above freezing, you've got a...
Sorry, that's below freezing.
I'm sorry?
It's below freezing.
What is freezing in Fahrenheit?
Don't know, but it's 0 degrees Celsius,
Right.
and it was -5 degrees Celsius at the time.
Right, but would you agree that, and I want to be fair to you because I know you use Celsius more
Yes.
than Americans who use Fahrenheit, but would you agree that 2 degrees Fahrenheit is the freezing point in Fahrenheit?
I honestly wouldn't know.
Okay, fair enough. So, in any event, in your experiment at 33.8 degrees Fahrenheit, you're getting a drop in your experiment in 13 minutes of 30.6 degrees, right?
Correct.
But much less drop in temperature on slide deck 60 of the actual iPhone of John O'Keefe on the morning of January 29th, correct?
Yes, correct.
Do you know what the temperature was in Canton in January 29th, 2022?
I do not know.
Don't you think that that would be an important piece of information in analyzing where the phone of John O'Keefe was on the morning of January 29th?
I didn't think it was.
So you didn't think it was important, even though you issued a report discussing the temperature of the iPhone, and you did 2 test scenarios, one in a freezer, one in an ambient temperature of slightly above 33 degrees, and you didn't think it important to take the final step to see whether there was anything to be gained from that comparison to determine where that phone was located?
My testing proved that the battery temperature is affected by ambient temperature. My report shows the data that was on the device. I also don't know the condition that the phone was found in, whether it was in a case, whether it was in a pocket. So to me, the ambient temperature in Canton at the time wasn't particularly relevant. I just wanted to show what data the device had recorded.
The information that you create from your digital forensics analysis, including everything that's in the slide in your report, including battery One sec, sir. I'll go back to the question. In digital forensics, you work with law enforcement often, correct?
Correct.
And you work in law enforcement in investigating cases, do you not?
Yes.
And so oftentimes, the law enforcement is using your digital forensics information to help them solve cases, correct?
Correct.
You didn't suggest to anybody on law enforcement that they might want to take a look at this temperature information to assist in determining where this phone could have been by the temperature? You never raised that with them?
I did not.
And do you know whether any law enforcement person was aware that you had done all this temperature analysis?
It was in my report.
So you create a report as part of this case, and you deem the temperature important enough to do 2 test scenarios, important enough to put it in a slide presentation to this jury. Yet there's no discussion of that between you and any member of law enforcement as to what it means?
The details were provided in my report, and there was discussions, but it never came up as to say what was the temperature in Canton that night.
Oh, so there were discussions.
Not with law enforcement.
Oh, who
As
were
part of my preparations for trial.
Oh, tell me about who you discussed this temperature information with.
It was with Hank.
You're hesitating, and I can't hear you. Who did you discuss
with
it
Hank?
with? Excuse me?
With Mr. Brennan.
Attorney Brennan?
Yes.
You discussed temperature with Prosecutor Brennan.
It was in my report.
It was in your report, but you said you discussed. Which is it?
It's in my report, and the discussion was that it is in my report. I'm not in a position to suggest that investigations take place and change based on my report findings.
Oh, sir, I'm not suggesting what you just stated. I'm just trying to get information about, you mentioned the verb discussed. Didn't you, in your
Yes, I
answer
did.
moments ago?
Yes.
Isn't discussed a verbal thing? It's not a written thing?
It was discussed in preparation for trial, yes.
Oh, so there was a discussion, a verbal discussion with Attorney Brennan about temperature in your preparation for trial.
Yes.
Was there any interest at all as to what this could actually mean for the potential location of Mr. O'Keefe's phone on these very important time periods in January 29th that might assist to determine at various times whether Mr. O'Keefe is in a covered building based upon the temperature rather than outside in a nor'easter on January 29th?
I'm sorry, what was the question there?
Yeah, the question is, was there any discussion about the investigative value of what you had done in determining where that phone could have been on key time periods on the morning of January 29th?
That wasn't part of the discussion, no.
It wasn't part of the discussion. We went through, you may recall in my questioning, in your report, where you stated that it was possible that the phone could be inside the house of 34 Fairview based upon that big white circle. You testified that the low accuracy at certain points could be because of it entering a covered building, correct?
Correct.
And you do a temperature experiment to track the very accurate temperature change of an iPhone, and it doesn't match up the actual data with either of your test scenarios, and you don't raise that with anybody? Objection.
Sustained. You can ask it differently.
Did you ever put together in any kind of form your test scenario 1, your test scenario 2, and the actual temperature chart of the iPhone of Mr. O'Keefe?
So how do you mean put it together? As in compare the two?
Exactly. Compare the two and reach any conclusions about location, because you spent time, did you not, sir, a lot of time in your reports on location of the phone.
Yes.
But yet, with all that data, all that testing, all the experiments that you did, you didn't include in your slide presentation and you didn't include in your report what that could mean for the location of the phone, did you, sir?
I'm struggling to see the comparison there.
Let me see if I can ask it in a different
Please.
way. Nowhere in your slide presentation did you have any discussion yesterday about how your test scenario, did you bring up, by the way, in your slide presentation yesterday, your battery temperature at all, your tests?
Not the tests, no.
Great, so you didn't even raise yesterday in your presentation about where the phone might be located. You didn't even raise the experiments that you did, correct?
Sustained as to the terminology. Ask it differently.
Did you yesterday, in your presentation to the jury, in any way discuss your battery test scenario 1 and 2 in your March 2025 report?
I believe there was mention of testing, but not to the amount of detail to say what the testing was.
Right. So there was no detail given at all
No
about
detail.
it. You just mentioned that it occurred, but no detail in your discussion
Correct.
at all. And are you aware, with regard to the battery temperature, that battery temperature in investigations can be used to determine locations of phones at certain times? Are you aware of that?
No.
So you have never used battery temperature information in all your years in any way for any investigation of a case in determining location of a phone?
Again, I don't see how you can determine location of a device from a temperature reading, other than to say whether it was inside or outside.
So battery temperature and the chart that you gave that is up there, in your opinion, has no relevancy to the topic of where a phone might be to investigators in a case? Is that what you're saying?
Objection.
Is that what you're saying, Mr. Whiffin?
I'm saying I can't take a temperature reading and make a determination about a GPS location based on the temperature reading.
That's not my question, though,
Okay.
sir, and I appreciate your answer, though. My question is, you work with law enforcement investigators regularly,
Yes.
correct? Isn't this information of potential relevance based upon your experience with investigations? Isn't this information at least potentially relevant in investigations?
I believe it could be. That's why I included it in my report.
Thank you. But you didn't include a discussion of it in your testimony yesterday, correct?
Correct.
I just want to be clear on a final point as regards to temperature. Were you aware of the temperature in Canton on January 29th, 2022?
I know it was a blizzard, but I don't know what the temperature was.
Your Honor, if I may, I have one last point to make with temperature. If we could put deck 60 back up, please. Mr. Whiffin, if you bear with me, I just have
course.
one final set of questions. If you look at this chart, and you, under January 29th, at 12:13, battery temperature of 82 degrees. But you then go down, what I'd like to start with is 12:37 again. And this is a key time point, 12:37. You've got a temperature of 72 degrees. And then 8 minutes later, 8 minutes, the temperature only drops 6 degrees, correct?
Correct.
Again, using 1237 is what I refer to as the baseline. You go all the way down, and you see to 1253 a temperature drop of only 11 degrees. Do you see that?
I do.
Thank you. That you can, excuse me, Your Honor, one moment.
Okay.
The final data point on this slide, Mr. Whiffin, and thank you for bearing with me on this. At 136, there's a temperature of 50 degrees Fahrenheit, correct?
Correct.
Several hours later, at 6:06, 4.5 hours, the temperature drop is only 7 degrees, correct?
Correct.
Mr.
Thank
Whiffin,
you.
I'm handing you Exhibit 42.
Yes.
Do you recognize Exhibit 42 from your March 2025 report?
I do.
And sir, just take a fair time to familiarize yourself with the exhibit before I start asking you questions. They're going to be very brief. And I'm going to be, you look what you need to, but I'm going to be focusing on just under detailed analysis communications on paragraph 3, on page 43, the top 3 or 4 entries.
Okay.
Tell me when you're ready, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Your Honor, may I have 43, which is in evidence published?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Wolf, please. And if you could enlarge, you don't need the text, so if we can just go to detailed analysis, communication, call history, and now if you could just super enlarge the first few entries. Yes, that is great. So what I want to do is just cover the information here. Whose phone is the subject of the entries on this chart?
This is John's phone.
And if we start with the first entry, reading left to right, 12:14:36, end time 12:15:20, incoming call from Jen McCabe, duration 44 seconds. You see that, sir?
I do.
You see, and is that a call that is answered?
Yes.
If you go to the next entry, 1847, just 12:18:47 to 12:19:23, outgoing call, duration 36 seconds, to Jen McCabe, duration 36 seconds. Do you see that, sir?
I do.
Is that a call that is answered?
Difficult to say. That could be a outgoing call that lasted 36 seconds of ringing, but I believe it was answered.
Well, how is it that you can tell the first one was answered but not the second one?
Because it's an incoming call.
Okay, fair enough. So if we go to the third entry, 12:29:44, 12:29:51, incoming call from Jen McCabe. You see that, sir?
I don't mean to interrupt. Could I ask about the display?
Let me just set that. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Leslie.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I approach, please?
Yes.
I have a replacement.
Okay.
So, Your Honor, I have a replacement Exhibit 42 redacted, obviously to replace Exhibit 42. And it's per stipulation of the school law. May I present it to Mr. Whiffin? Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Whiffin. May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Whiffin, we had started going through the top three entries. The first one you had indicated was answered. The second one you, as I understand it, could not tell. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then the third entry, which is reading left to right, 12:29:44, end time 12:29:51, incoming call duration 8 seconds from Jen McCabe.
Correct.
That's the third one. So because it's an
So,
incoming...
Mr. Alessi, we need to enlarge this.
Okay, Your Honor. Mr. Wolf, can you enlarge that pursuant to the judge's order? Is that sufficient, Your Honor?
If you can make it as large as possible for the jurors, please, even if you have to do smaller segments.
If we have to, Mr. Wolf, knock off the final right-hand column, that's insignificant. There you go.
All right, that's better. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. So I want to now go to the last one for this Exhibit 42. It's reading from left to right, 12:29:44, 12:29:51, incoming call duration 8 seconds from Jen McCabe. Again, it restates duration 8 seconds.
Correct.
Given that it's an incoming call, you can conclude that that was answered, correct?
Correct.
Now, if we could go back down and focusing on just the first three by way of example, Mr. Wolf, do just as Her Honor has requested, enlarge it as large as possible. Those three, after the first three, yep, starting there, just take the first three by way of example. All right. Mr. Whiffin, you should feel free to look at the hard copy Exhibit 42 if that's more helpful to you. But what I want to do is to focus on start time 12:33:35, reading across activity, incoming call, unanswered, and then to the right, Karen Reed. Do you see that, sir?
I do.
And do you see the same types of entries for 3409 and 3438?
I do.
And those calls are unanswered, correct?
Correct.
So in contrast to the, and now Mr. Walker, we can go back to the chart, trying to capture 6 and enlarge those one last time. Thank you. So in the first one at 1436, and then skipping one to 2944, those are answered, but then starting, excuse me, at 3335 and 3409, those are unanswered, correct?
Correct.
You can take that down, Mr. Wolf. Thank you. Mr. Whiffin, when did you start working on this case? What was the date, approximate date?
On this case or on this exhibit?
On this case.
Approximately September 2023.
So over a year and a half.
Correct.
How many times have you been in Norfolk County?
This is my second time.
So you were here once previously.
Correct.
Do you recall yesterday discussing what you had done with an iPhone, driving around and then moving it with your hand?
Correct. Yes.
In the year and a half that you've been on this case, did you ever take an iPhone and do the same activity on the route that you were discussing yesterday between 34 Fairview and One Meadows?
I actually did it on Sunday night.
I'm sorry?
I did it 2 days ago on Sunday night.
And with regard to your time on this case, what was the result of that?
I object, Your Honor. I'll need to be heard briefly.
I'm sorry?
I object, I need to be heard briefly.
Okay. Point over.
Yeah, Your Honor.
Yes.
Mr. Whiffin, I am now going to proceed to a different topic.
Okay.
Do you recall discussing the Google search, how long to die in the cold?
I do.
And you discussed that in your direct testimony, correct?
I did.
You were a police officer for years before getting into the data forensic analysis of cell phones, correct?
Correct.
You were a response officer of the South Yorkshire Police from 2004 to 2009.
Correct.
You continued policing with the Calgary Police, working patrol, correct?
Correct.
You work frequently with law enforcement.
I do.
Indeed, law enforcement is the predominance of your work, correct?
Probably about 80% of the work. Yes.
What percent?
About 80%.
80?
80.
Your work is used in investigations for law enforcement, correct?
Sometimes, yes.
In your area of work, you use and apply various forensic methods that are extracted, that data is extracted from a cell phone, correct?
Correct.
And you have various forensic methods to analyze that data, correct?
Correct.
And that data that you analyze is often used by law enforcement in their investigations, right?
It can be, yes.
It can be, but it also is, from your experience, correct?
I'm sorry, are we talking about my actual analysis or analysis that's created by the tools that me and Cellebrite create?
Your analysis.
Okay, my analysis is typically used in investigations, yes.
So it's typically, your analysis is typically used by law enforcement.
On the cases I work, yes.
Right. And you know that is going to be the case oftentimes when you're doing your analysis, correct?
Correct.
And forensic software is used to gain access to people's devices, correct?
Correct.
Such as cell phones, right?
Correct.
So, and there's something called an extraction process from the cell phone that you discussed in your direct testimony.
Yes.
Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I want to cover, because it would be covering old ground, but I want to cover some of it.
Okay.
It's important, is it not, that the extraction process on a cell phone be performed correctly.
It is, yes.
And that's so that the data that's extracted from a cell phone is complete, correct?
Correct.
So that the data is correct,
Correct.
and so that the data is reliable.
Correct.
And data forensic examiners and people in your area of work need to ensure that the extraction file has not been tampered with, correct?
Correct.
Because if an extraction file has the possibility of tampering, then the information and data from it can be unreliable, correct?
Correct.
And there's a generally accepted methodology for how to perform an extraction of data from a cell phone, correct?
Typically, yes.
One of the key ways to determine whether the data extracted from a cell phone is valid and has integrity is to evaluate whether the extraction process created what is called a hash value, correct?
Correct.
And a synonym for a hash value is a hash signature, correct?
Correct.
And a hash value or hash signature, I'm just going to use hash value. Is that acceptable to you?
I'm fine with that.
Thank you. So a hash value is a unique and usually consists of a long string of numbers and letters that's generated from the data file from a cell phone using a computer algorithm, right?
Correct.
And one of the computer algorithms is SHA SHA 256, right?
Correct.
And is it a fair analogy to state that a hash value can be thought of as fingerprint for a data file from a cell phone.
Yes.
And is it also a rough analogy that a hash value can function like the seal on a milk container? In other words, if you open the milk container and the seal's broken, that the same analogy can be provided that if you don't have a valid hash value, then there is a question with regard to the contents of a cell phone, just as there might be concern about contents of a milk carton. Is that a fair general analogy?
Yeah, if the hash doesn't match, then something has changed in the data.
So if the hash doesn't match and you can't determine a valid hash file, it's sort of like opening up a milk container and that seal cap is off, correct?
Okay, I'll accept that.
Thank you. Now, if a data file is altered in any way, the hash algorithm is going to produce a different letter in numeric string than the previous hash value for that same alleged data, correct?
Correct.
So that alphanumeric number is important because it can, if it's different, then it means something happened to that data, correct?
Correct.
And isn't it important for examiners, anybody in data forensics, to know whether or not the data they're looking at has a valid hash value?
It would depend, in my opinion, on the origin of the data.
But you would agree that it's much better to have a valid hash value for data than not, correct?
I'd like to see the hash value match, yes.
You would like to see the hash value matching,
Yes.
correct? Now, once data from an iPhone is properly extracted and you get a hash value, then the examiners of the data seek to pass and decode the data to try and make some sense of the data in a more user-friendly format so that a report can be created for investigators, correct?
Correct.
Do you recall preparing a report for the iPhone belonging to Jen McCabe dated December 2024?
I do, yes.
And in that report, you discussed your views of a Google search of How Long to Die in the Cold, correct?
Correct.
And in that report, you rendered various conclusions about that Google search, correct?
Correct.
And you rendered various conclusions about what is called a timestamp.
Correct.
And the timestamp that was in question was 2:27:40 a.m. on January 29th on Jen McCabe's phone, correct?
Correct.
And the question that you were looking at is that timestamp that appeared in the data, that timestamp of 2:27:40 a.m., whether that belonged to the Google search, How Long to Die in the Cold, correct?
Correct.
And you testified yesterday with regard to that very issue, correct?
Correct.
Now, in your report of December 2024, you discussed the hash value of that cell phone, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Yesterday, in your direct testimony, you didn't mention anything about the hash value with regard to Jen McCabe's phone, did you?
Not in my testimony, no.
The answer is no, correct? However, isn't it correct that in your report of December 2024, you had an issue with the hash value from the data from that phone?
I didn't have an issue with the hash value at all, no.
So you didn't note that it was not possible with the gray key extraction as the PDF containing the extraction hash value, that it was unsigned? That was not an issue in your report?
The hash value matches, but because I didn't do the extraction, I'm unable to actually validate that was an original hash and hadn't been modified.
Exactly. So you didn't do the extraction, but you couldn't validate the hash value, could you?
No.
So you couldn't determine whether or not any of the data on that cell phone of Jen McCabe had been tampered with, correct?
I take a holistic view of the data and try to find anomalies and didn't see any that raised any flags.
That wasn't my question, sir.
Okay.
I'll try it a different way. You concluded that the hash value was unsigned, correct?
Correct. They were always unsigned. Okay,
that-
apologies.
You concluded that the hash value was unsigned, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. And you went on, did you not, in your report, to say that this hash value could be used as a suggestion of authentication, but cannot be guaranteed 100%, correct?
Correct.
Did you discuss any of that doubt, that suggestion of authentication but can't be guaranteed 100% at all in your direct testimony yesterday?
I didn't know.
And again, hash values are very important concepts for data forensic examiners, correct?
For integrity, yes.
Do you know the chain of custody of Jen McCabe's iPhone?
I don't know.
So you don't know the chain of custody of her iPhone. You have an unsigned hash value, and you can't guarantee the hash value authentication, correct?
No.
The objection's overruled.
Not from the hash value, no.
Let's go back to the 22740 timestamp and the question of whether that timestamp is associated with a Google search, "House long to die in the cold." You understand there is a dispute as to whether that search was performed at 2:27:40 a.m. as the timestamp states, or whether that was performed later in the morning, say around 6:23 a.m., correct?
Correct.
You understand there's a dispute.
Yes.
And do you understand that the defense asserts that that timestamp means what it says, the Google search occurred at 2:27:40 a.m.?
I'm going to allow it. Do you understand that?
I do.
I didn't hear your answer, sir.
I understand.
You understand that?
Yes.
So there are various data forensic tools, are there not, to evaluate what is called an artifact, this timestamp, correct?
Correct.
And those data forensic tools include Cellebrite tools, your company's tools.
Yes.
And some of those Cellebrite tools are called Physical Analyzer.
Correct.
And then you have another tool, I believe, called Insights.
Insights is a suite that includes Physical Analyzer. But yes.
So it's Insights is a
It's
suite.
essentially the same tool.
Essentially the same tool. So this Insight, well, essentially, but they're two different tools, correct?
They're two different versions of the same tool.
Thank you. Two different versions of the same tool.
Yes.
But there are other tools from other companies, are there not, sir?
There are.
And a competitor of Cellebrite that can be used to analyze that 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp and to potentially resolve that dispute of whether the Google search "House long to die in the cold" occurred at 2:27:40 a.m. or later at 6:23 or so a.m. There's other companies and tools that can be used for that, correct?
Correct.
And isn't one of the companies that can be used a competitor of Cellebrite called Magnet Forensics?
Correct.
And they have a tool called Axiom, A-X-I-O-M, that evaluates questions such as this, correct?
They do.
And is Magnet Forensics a reputable company?
They are.
Am I correct that yesterday you essentially said that as of today, no Cellebrite tool, no Insight suite such as Physical Analyzer, today shows that 22740 AM timestamp?
Correct. If you use any version from the last approximately year, that timestamp won't show up.
It won't show up as you sit here today.
Correct.
But that's not always been the case
Correct.
with regard to Cellebrite forensic tools, correct?
Correct.
As a matter of fact, in the first proceeding in this case, in June of 2024, when you testified under oath, the situation with the forensic tools was Cellebrite Forensics Insights did not show the 22740 AM timestamp, but another version of Physical Analyzer did show it, correct?
Correct.
In that second program, that second tool, Physical Analyzer, not only showed it at 22740 AM, but it showed it as a deleted state, correct?
It's a deleted record, yes.
A deleted record.
Yes.
Did you mention that yesterday in your direct testimony?
I don't believe so.
You don't believe so?
No, we changed it since then.
Exactly. You changed it since then.
Yes.
Your company removed it
Yes.
after the first trial.
Before the first trial.
Well, you removed it from one tool before the first trial, but you didn't remove it from the other Physical Analyzer program, did you?
Up until the following version was released.
No, I'm talking about the time of trial when you were testifying.
I appreciate that. There's some complexities with how we released the software, which resulted in one being released several weeks later and one being released several weeks earlier.
At the time of trial,
Yes.
last year in June, when you were testifying under oath, one of the Cellebrite tools showed the timestamp of 22740 AM, correct?
Correct.
But that timestamp doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't exist today, does it?
Correct.
Cellebrite removed it.
Yes.
You mentioned...
Could I see Counselor Sidebar for just a minute,
yes, Your Honor.
please? Go ahead,
So-
Mr. Leslie.
Thank you, Your Honor. So with regard to the first proceeding, there was one Cellebrite forensic tool that still showed the 22740 AM timestamp,
Correct.
and it was shown in a deleted state.
The record was deleted, yes.
The record was deleted. And then after that, Cellebrite outright removed the timestamp from so none of its programs had it. Correct?
Again, if I could explain a little bit about how it works.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
If you could just respond to my question. Is that correct?
The timestamp's been removed, yes.
However, the competitor of Cellebrite that we just talked about, Magnet Forensics Axiom,
Yes.
that program at the first proceeding showed the 22740 AM timestamp, correct?
Correct.
And as a matter of fact, as you sit here today, the Magnet Forensics program, Axiom, still shows the 227.4 AM timestamp, correct?
As far as I know, yes.
And Magnet Forensic Axiom is a reputable company, correct?
Correct.
Cellebrite removed that 227.40 AM timestamp, which is in a deleted state, in response to issues raised in the first proceeding, correct?
It was changed because of the research that I did, and that was verified by the forensic research group.
But the issue arose because of what had come up in the first proceeding, correct?
In the first investigation prior to the proceeding, yes.
In the first investigation in this case, correct?
Yes.
So Cellebrite, after the first proceeding, after the investigation, just outright went and removed the timestamp.
It's not unusual to change the
I
coding.
didn't ask if it, I just asked whether
Yep,
they
we removed it.
But magnet forensic axiom still shows that 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp, right?
Again, they refer to it differently, which is why they can
But
do
they
that.
still show it.
They do still show it.
Can you just finish the answer?
So,
Sorry. Just let him finish the answer. Is that what you said, Mr. Guarino?
yeah, my apologies, but I'm having trouble hearing, but I'll pause more just to make sure you're done. In that 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp, the dispute is whether it's associated with the search, "House long to die in the cold," correct?
Correct.
Let's talk a little bit more about the first proceeding in this case. In terms of your testimony under oath in that first proceeding, do you recall stating that it was your opinion as to whether that 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp was associated or not with the Google search, "House long to die in the cold"?
I believe so.
Right, so you called it your opinion.
Yes, probably.
You didn't describe it as a fact, you described it as your opinion, correct?
Correct.
Because you realize that there are other fair interpretations of that timestamp and when the Google search occurred, correct?
I think even if I believe it's a fact, it's my opinion.
Right, so it's your opinion.
Yes.
So you also, do you recall stating that there's plenty of other evidence on that extraction that shows what activity was occurring at 2:27:40? You recall that?
Correct.
And you used the word evidence, correct?
Correct.
But that evidence on the Cellebrite program is now gone, correct?
No,
It's not gone?
it's not gone.
So the 2:27:40 timestamp still exists in Cellebrite programs?
Sorry, are we talking about the additional evidence that shows what
Oh, no.
happened at 2:27:40?
No, I'm just asking whether,
Okay.
I thought we had that clear, but I thought, is the 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp show up on any Cellebrite program as you sit here today?
The decoded value does not show a timestamp for
Thank you.
that artifact.
Sir, does your work include shaping how examiners will see the data when they open it?
Yes.
So you shape how the data is going to be, correct?
Yes, we have
Yes?
ways to create the data so it's usable. Yes.
So the answer is
shape it.
yes, you
Yes.
shape the data.
Yes.
These various forensic tools, Cellebrite, Insight Suite, including Physical Analyzer, Magnet Forensics Axiom, these are all tools, and we know that no one has access to the Apple source code on iPhones, correct?
Correct.
And the best source of information about what may be happening inside of an Apple iPhone would be if one could get the source code and look into the source codes to see what's actually happening, correct?
Correct.
So what happens is, in data forensics, because Apple considers it proprietary and people can't access the source code, there's these various data forensic tools that in some ways try to serve as a surrogate, given the fact that there's no access to source code, correct?
Correct. That's fair.
So the best information would come from the Apple source code, but nobody has access to that, or few people do. Therefore, these other forensic tools are used.
Correct.
So sometimes examiners have to give opinions, like you give, because you don't have access to the source code, correct?
Correct.
So it's your opinion, oftentimes, with regard to ultimate conclusion.
Based on research and testing. But yes,
Not
it's an opinion.
100% absolute certainty, because you don't have access to the source code, correct?
Correct.
You have a moment, Your Honor, to switch topics, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Before I do switch topics, a couple points on the 22740 timestamp, if I may, Mr. Whiffin. The Google search in question associated with that timestamp, the dispute over that, is house long to die in the cold, correct?
Correct.
And you understand, sir, do you understand the significance if Jen McCabe made that Google search, house long to die in the cold, at 2:27:40 a.m. instead of 6:23 a.m.? Do you understand the significance of that?
Of course.
Sustained.
He said yes, Your Honor.
I'm sorry? I said sustained.
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. I didn't hear that.
Jurors, strike any answer that may have come.
What do you understand to be the significance of the dispute over 22740 timestamp?
Objection.
Sustained.
Mr. Whiffin, with regard to the 22740 a.m. timestamp, have you looked at any forensic tools to answer that question other than Cellebrite tools in your tool Ardex?
I've used Axiom as well.
So you used Axiom, and so did you therefore see that that 22740 a.m. timestamp still appeared?
Yes.
Did you discuss that with the jury yesterday, that you analyzed the Axiom program and that 22740 a.m. timestamp still appears?
I didn't. No.
You did not.
I did not.
Could we please, with the court's permission, put the PowerPoint presentation back up and go to Deck 26? Mr. Whiffin, does an iPhone discriminate between whether it's in a car, a bus, a bicycle, or walking?
It can, but I don't have the research on that.
Right. So as you sit here today, you can't say that an iPhone can tell the difference between a car, a bus, bicycle, or walking, correct?
The iPhone can, but I haven't researched that data fully enough to understand it forensically.
So as you
I
sit here,
can't, but
you
the phone
can't.
can.
Does an iPhone merely register movement? Let me rephrase that. Does an iPhone register movement?
It does.
Do you recall yesterday discussing movement at a speed of about 1.4 miles per hour at 12:24:37 a.m. on
Yes.
January 29th, 2022?
I do.
A person walking at a normal to even a slow pace can walk at approximately 1.4 miles per hour. Is that correct?
It sounds reasonable.
And does it sound reasonable that a normal speed of walking is between 2 and 4 miles per hour?
Reasonable.
When you were examining Jennifer McCabe's phone, you used an operating system called iOS 14, correct?
That's one of the versions of iOS I used, yes.
That was one of the versions.
Yes.
Do you understand that Jen McCabe's phone was actually using iOS version 15?
Yes, I do. 15.2.1.
15.2?
2.1.
Thank you. And do you recall saying, with regard to iOS 15.1, etc., that the iOS operating system, your words, had fundamentally changed, correct?
Correct.
Now, with regard to, we're back to Jen McCabe's phone, we're back to 2740, the issue of deletions. You stated yesterday that deletion occurred after January 31 of 2022, is that correct?
Correct.
But you couldn't determine how that deletion occurred with certainty, correct?
Correct.
And you gave 3 possibilities that you analyzed, correct?
3 or 4, yes.
3 or 4. And one of them was deleted by user, correct?
Correct.
Another one was that the search occurred but never loaded.
That would be the reason that there was no data found in the history.db file.
But that was another of the 3 or 4 reasons, correct?
That wouldn't cause the deletion of the record,
Right,
necessarily.
Right. And then you you discussed those possibilities, but you can't state with certainty how that deletion occurred, can you?
Correct.
You have doubts about how it occurred, is that fair?
Yeah, I have an idea how it occurred, but I can't prove it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
No, please finish. I want to make sure you finish.
I have an idea of how it occurred, but I've not been able to replicate it, so my idea is unsubstantiated.
So is it fair to say you have some doubts
Yes.
about how the deletion occurs?
That's fair.
And you believe your doubt is reasonable
Yes.
under the circumstances?
Yes.
Your Honor, that is the extent of my questions of the witness at this time.
Okay. Mr. Brennan?
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
As a forensic analyst, do you study data?
I do.
Do you consider it a science?
I do.
Are you a criminal investigator like a police officer in your present role?
Not anymore.
Are you a detective in your present role helping aid one side or another in an investigation?
I'm not, no.
At some point, you and I spoke about reviewing phones.
We did.
You had begun your whole process in some of this work before you had met me.
Correct.
And I'd asked you to look at Mr. O'Keefe's phone.
Correct?
Did I ever tell you what you should look for?
No.
Did I ever tell you what I wanted to see or what I wanted the results to be?
No.
Did I ever share with you parts of the investigation that had nothing to do with your actual data analysis?
No.
Would it be inappropriate or not helpful for an advocate to provide you information that might taint or influence your thinking when you're looking at data in a case? Objection, Your Honor.
100% it would be problematic.
When I asked you to look at data in this case, did I ever express any opinion whatsoever that I cared, one way or another, what your results would find?
No.
Did I ever attempt to shape or influence your process by offering you information that had nothing to do with your assessment of data?
No.
And so as a scientist, what a legal investigator or an advocate for either side thinks, is that relevant to you?
No.
The data is the data?
The data is the data. I can explain my opinions on the data.
The science is the science?
The science is the science.
That's sustained. Watch the form.
Now, counsel showed you some parts of your report regarding John O'Keefe's cell phone, didn't he?
Yes,
You saw select pages from that report,
correct.
a few pages you were asked about,
Yes,
but you wrote an entire report, didn't you?
I did.
And do you think that your entire report puts into perspective some of those select pages that you were shown?
Definitely, yes.
Now, I move to introduce Mr. Whiffin's entire report.
Okay.
Do you still have your report with you, Mr. Whiffin?
I do, yes.
Okay.
Let's start with questions that counsel asked you about the battery. When you were trying to determine how the battery worked, you shared with the jury that you did certain testing.
Correct.
What was the purpose of that testing?
To make sure that the battery temperature sensor would be affected by environmental temperatures, such as being in the freezer, such as being outside, being brought back indoors, and to make sure that the fall and rise of the temperature sensor, at least the pattern would match the expected pattern and would match the thermometer that was alongside it.
When you put the batteries or the phone in the freezers, did it matter what the temperature of the freezer was when you put it in it?
I didn't believe it did.
What was the purpose again of putting it in the freezer?
Just to remove the device from a warm environment, which was outside of the freezer, placing it inside the cold environment of the freezer and just seeing how the temperature dropped.
As you mentioned, you look at data through science, correct?
Correct.
And so, did anybody ever share with you the important points of the decrease in temperature of the cell phone battery to try to influence your results?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, could you
Did
rephrase?
anybody try to tell you important points of the evening on January 29th, 2022 in an attempt to influence your studies on the fact that a battery or a phone, when it gets colder, the battery temperature decreases?
No.
So when you developed the graph of the battery temperature and you followed the progress of that temperature declining through the night, was there any other scope or focus of yours other than to simply track the data?
Just tracking the data.
Similarly, when you looked at healthcare data, were you asked to try to see if the healthcare data could fit a certain theory or argument?
No, I was not.
You were looking at the healthcare data. Were you looking at it independently?
I was.
Now, it's not your opinion, or you're not taking a position what the meaning of that data matching up is, are you?
No.
No one's asked you to give an opinion about the coordination of data, have they?
No.
So if the data just coordinates on its own, that has nothing to do with your opinion.
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm sustained as to
You mentioned when you put a cell phone in a colder environment, like a freezer, you noted that the temperature goes down.
Correct.
Do your studies also show that when the cell phone is taken out of a certain temperature and put in an increased temperature, the cell phone battery temperature goes up?
It does.
Do you have available for the screen the battery graph that we had on your PowerPoint?
I do. 2 seconds.
If you could go back one to where it's just the chart, please. And if you could enlarge it, we'll start near the top. Okay. At 12:20:43 on January 28, 2023, the battery temperature is 77 degrees.
I'm sorry, that's 8:43 p.m.
That's
all right?
8:43 p.m.?
Yes, the first record.
77 degrees?
Yes.
And if we look down to the last box on January 28, 2023,
Yes.
so at 23:28, that's 12:23:28?
Objection, Your Honor. When you approach, please.
okay.
Mr. Whiffin, I'm going to ask you to start at 12:13 on January 29th, 2022. Battery temperature 82 degrees.
Yes.
And now you are also tracking healthcare data, weren't you?
Correct.
You are also tracking location information.
Correct.
At 12:22, the battery temperature is 77 degrees Fahrenheit.
Correct.
And during that time, 12:22, that is the time with the location data where we see Mr. O'Keefe's car traveling near Cedarbrook, isn't it?
The form sustained.
And at 12:22, on January 29, 2022, where does the location data show Mr. O'Keefe's phone in progress?
It's around Oakdale Road, I believe.
And the travel that you're noting, is that consistent given the speed of being within a car?
I believe so.
And do you know whether or not that car had heat on?
I've got no idea.
You have healthcare data that the phone moves for a 20-second period, right?
I believe so,
And
yes.
that is after the Waze information stops.
Correct.
So you have to watch the form. I know it's hard to orient, but you have to watch.
In your PowerPoint presentation, you are tracking the Waze information, aren't you?
I am, yes.
And at some point that switches to more local location data?
Again, Waze is not recording the location data. Waze is requesting location data from Apple's location services, and location services is doing the recording of the location data.
So if we're following the phone through Waze, at 12:24:25, is it in the car moving at 16.6 miles per hour?
According to the data, yes.
And at 12:24:26, according to the data, is it still in a car moving at 17 miles per hour?
Stained his two forms.
Can you pull up your PowerPoint, and we'll start at 12:24:25. We can show the jury the progress of that phone.
Okay.
And at 12:24:25, how fast is Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone moving?
The data on the device says that it was moving at around 16.6 miles per hour.
Next page, 24:26.
17 miles per hour.
Next page, 24:27.
15.9 miles per hour.
Next page, 24:28.
14.5 miles per hour.
24:29.
12.1 miles per hour.
24:30.
11.5 miles per hour.
24:31.
10.4 miles per hour.
24:32.
8.9 miles per hour.
24:33.
7 miles per hour.
24:34.
5.2 miles per hour.
24:35.
3.5 miles per hour.
24:36.
3.2 miles per hour.
24:37.
1.4 miles per hour.
And 24:38.
0 miles per hour or 0 meters per second.
And at 24:38, that phone is stopped near the flagpole?
I would say so, yes.
Then the location data gets more broad.
It does.
There is no movement at that time after the car stops. Is there any movement when the car stops at 24:38, between 24:38 and 24:30? Is there any movement indicated on the healthcare data?
Not from the health data, no.
At 12:31:57, does the phone demonstrate any movement?
If I may just look back at my
Of
report,
course,
just to
please.
recall. Yes, around 12:31:56 or 57 is the start of the health event, 36 steps.
How long? How many seconds does that phone move for?
20 seconds.
12:31:56 to 12:32:16?
Correct.
And is that the only time that the phone moves from the point it stops at the flagpole until the next morning?
Correct.
The only time.
Correct.
12:31:56 to 12:32:16.
Yes.
And when that phone moves, you can't tell if it's walking a straight line or in a circle.
Correct.
You don't know if the phone is pacing back and forth.
Sustained as to form.
Can you tell how far a phone moves from its origin, from its original point when you're counting steps?
No. iOS creates the calculation, number of steps times the person's gait, and provides the 25.4 meters value.
At 12:32:16, when that phone stops moving, John O'Keefe's phone stops moving, do you know the next time it moves again?
I'm going all in.
It's approximately 6:15.
Now, less than 5 minutes later, 12:37, that battery in that cell phone gets another temperature reading, doesn't it?
It does.
Does it go up?
It goes down.
And it goes down to what degrees?
72 degrees.
And over the next 8 minutes, does that temperature even or go up?
At 43 minutes past, there was another reading of 66 Fahrenheit.
And then at 12:53, that's about, what, 21 minutes or so after that phone stops moving? What's the temperature?
I'm sorry, at 12:53?
Yes,
Oh, 61 Fahrenheit.
61 degrees.
Yes.
And over the next 14 minutes, does it drop again?
It does. It drops to 55 degrees at 1:07.
And at 1:36 a.m. that morning,
It's down to 50 degrees.
and this health data shows that that phone hasn't moved. Does
Correct.
this healthcare data show that this phone hasn't moved since
there's-
12:32:16?
No more steps were recorded.
Now, you had studies where you put the phone in a freezer.
Correct.
When you put the phone in the freezer, did you wrap it in anything?
I didn't know.
Did you use any type of heat source that would slow down the process of the temperature dropping?
No.
Let me ask you a hypothetical. If a person, a human, was lying prone on a cell phone outside and had a body temperature directly touching the phone, in your opinion, could that slow the process of the temperature decreasing as compared to just simply putting a phone in a freezer?
Sustained.
When you put the phone in the freezer, did you wrap it in any warmth,
No.
any clothing?
Nothing at all.
Now, you don't know the temperature, but you said there was a blizzard outside.
That's my understanding, yes.
At 6:06 a.m., is there a change in the battery temperature of John O'Keefe's phone?
Yes, the temperature has dropped to 43 degrees Fahrenheit.
So there's a 7-degree drop in temperature at 6:06.
Correct.
Were you shared any of the facts or information that has nothing to do with data and science? Were you shared any facts or information about what may have occurred to that cell phone and its exposure to colder air that morning, minutes prior to 6:06 a.m.?
I may have heard that around that time is when John was found.
So could you answer the question, yes or no, that Mr. Brown asked you? Did anybody share information with you about that, sir?
Nobody shared it with me, no.
If the phone was in an environment and it was exposed to further colder air or drop in temperature, could it register a reading?
I'm sorry, can you ask that again?
Sure. Let me ask a different question. The phone drops to 43 degrees, John's phone at 6:06. 6:14, is there another change with this phone dropping in temperature?
Yes, it drops to 37 Fahrenheit.
Do you know what, if anything, happened as far as the environment that phone was exposed to seconds before 6:14?
I don't know.
Do you know if that phone at 6:15:01 was then placed in a warmer environment, like a pocket or a car? Do you
I
know?
have no idea.
But your data shows at 6:35 there's an increase in temperature,
Correct.
doesn't it?
It does.
So at 6:14 you don't know if there's been any increased exposure, do you?
No, I know that according to the battery temperature, it's increased, but I don't know the reason for that.
Now, if you look at the battery temperature at 6:06 a.m., it's 43 degrees.
Yes.
That's a change in temperature, isn't it? Is that a change in temperature from 136?
It is.
Looking at your healthcare data, is there something happening relative to the phone at 6:04 to 6:11?
There is. That is 432 steps were recorded at that time.
Can a phone record steps if it's being moved back and forth?
It may record some. It's difficult to say how many would be misunderstood as being steps taken.
If you're shaking an object that moves the phone violently, could it record steps?
Again, potentially it could record some, but it's not a consistent enough pattern of movement for it to be recorded as lots of steps.
Now at 6:14, the temperature is 37 degrees, and you just offered us that by 6:35, over the next 21 minutes, the degrees goes up by 6 degrees.
Correct.
You don't know what was happening with that phone at 6:15:01, do you?
I don't.
Do you know?
I don't know. No.
Next question.
But what you do know is this healthcare data at 6:15:14,
Correct.
and that demonstrates what?
At 6:15:14, it was the start of 180 steps.
So the phone at 6:15:14 is again moving.
Correct.
And after that starts moving wherever the phone may go, it starts getting warmer temperature.
Correct.
Now you shared with us location data, and you explained the difference between Waze and other types of location data. I'd ask you an opinion about where the phone was located, based just on location data, nothing else. And when I asked you that opinion, I didn't ask you to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, did I?
I don't recall.
I asked you if it was consistent
Yes.
with being near the flagpole the entire night.
Sustained.
Based on location data alone, are you offering an opinion to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty where that phone was?
It's difficult to say with a reasonable degree of certainty based on the randomness of the location data.
I'm going to ask you to keep your voice up, Mr. Whiffin. Could we turn the AC off, please? Thank you.
No, it's difficult to give an answer based to a high degree of scientific certainty based on the sporadic nature of the records that night.
Based on the data you have, just on location data alone, is that location data consistent with that phone being near the flagpole area from midnight until 6:15 the next morning?
It is, yes.
There's also information, because the broadness, that it could have been somewhere else.
Correct.
Yet it is consistent.
It is.
You didn't just rely on location data for your opinion, though.
I didn't know.
Watch the form, Mr. Brennan. Sustained.
Did you rely just on location data for your opinion?
No, I didn't know.
Did you also consider the health data?
I did.
And did you also consider the battery temperature?
Sustained.
In addition to location data, what are the other things you considered, in your opinion, to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, that that phone was at the flagpole the entire night from 12 12:30 until 6 the next morning.
I'm going to allow that.
It was based on the location data that recorded high accuracy, based on the health data that showed when the device moved and how far, based on the battery temperature information, and based on the Doppler face detection information.
Let me ask you some more questions about the health data. You were shown pieces of information on examination. You told us that health data, well, the phone was it your opinion the phone was in the car until it stopped at the flagpole?
Sustained.
At 12:31:56 and 12:32:16, does the data show that is the time that the phone was moving?
At what time, sorry?
12:31:56 to 12:32:16.
And sorry, the rest of the question was?
Does that demonstrate movement of the phone at that time?
Yes, it did.
You shared that you can't tell the direction or the distance of steps. If, no, please. If that phone moved from the flagpole in a straight line away from the flagpole, like for example towards the house, wouldn't it have to move again before 6:04 to get back to the flagpole?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll allow it.
I would presume so.
All right, you asking me to strike that, Mr.
Yes, Your
Leslie?
Honor.
I'm going to strike that.
Does health data register when a phone moves?
It does.
I'll ask you some more detailed questions about your research into a phone that's been attributed to Jennifer McCabe. You looked at one piece of your report on the screen, and that was a phone call register.
Yes.
Could you turn to that phone call register, please?
What are we doing with the slide that's up there, Mr. Brennan?
I would like to change it to the phone call register if possible. Okay.
It's not me.
This is now marked as Exhibit 42. In the phone call register, you noted that there was a call at 12:14:36.
Yes.
Have you found it? Is that you?
This is not me, no.
Oh,
I think it's Ms. Gilman.
thank you, Ms. Gilman. Could you enlarge that, please? On examination, you read that at 12:14:36, there was a phone call incoming
Yes.
that appeared to be from Jennifer McCabe.
Correct.
At 12:14:36, the location information is the John O'Keefe's cell phone at Fairview by that point?
Objection, Your Honor.
Is the question, is it?
Yes, is it?
No.
And then at 12:18:47, there's another call, and again from Jen McCabe.
That's an outgoing call to Jen McCabe.
It's an outgoing call to Jennifer McCabe.
Yes.
12:18:47, the location information, does that place Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone at Fairview?
No, it does not.
Then at 12:29:44, there's an 8-second call that you said you believe is answered. Do you know if there was any conversation in that call?
No way to know if there's any conversation.
And at 12:29:44, does the location information place John O'Keefe's cell phone somewhere
It does at Fairview Road.
at the flagpole?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll strike that.
Now, there is not a call. Well, let me ask you the next call. What time is the next call?
33 minutes and 35 seconds after midnight.
And who's that call from?
From Karen Reed.
Is that before or after John O'Keefe's health data stops?
After.
At 12:37, you offered us that the cell phone battery's temperature is decreasing.
Yes.
How many calls have been made from the defendant to John O'Keefe by the time that cell phone battery stops dropping in temperature?
7.
I want to turn now to some questions about your analysis of Ms. McCabe's phone. You were asked about hash values, a way of trying to confirm the integrity of the data on a extraction.
Yes.
When forensic analysts look at phones, do you sometimes get to actually see the phone?
Yes.
Do you sometimes have to use an extraction, a copy of the phone?
Yes.
Is it important to try to look and research or search the item to determine whether or not there's been any tampering?
Yes.
You were asked if hash values is one way to do that.
I was.
And you have shown or read part of your report about hash values.
Yes.
There's a second part to that, isn't there?
There is.
You didn't get a chance to share the second part, did you?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
In this case, there was a hash value, wasn't there?
There was.
Now, just so we can understand simply, how is a hash value created during the extraction process? What does that mean? In very, very simple terms.
At the end of the extraction, an algorithm is run on every piece of, every byte of data within the extraction, and it comes out with a value at the end. The idea is that if any of that data ever changes, be it through user interaction or through corruption of data in how it was stored, then that value will change at the end.
You mentioned Gray Key. Is that a software, hardware that makes the copy of the phone?
It's a piece of hardware and includes software.
How commonly is Gray Key used in the industry?
It's very common.
Did I hear you say that with Gray Key, the hash value is never authenticated?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained is to fall.
Does Gray Key authenticate the hash value?
The hash value is placed inside a PDF which is not signed.
And is that common or typical in the industry?
That is the way that Gray Key do it.
Was there anything anomaly or untoward or different about the way this one was done?
No.
Did the hash value from the Gray Key extraction match the hash value?
It did.
Anything irregular whatsoever about it?
No, not that I could see.
Now, you don't just read software programs when they spit out reports, do you?
No.
As an analyst, as one of the leaders of Cellebrite, do you have a history of being a researcher?
Yes, I do.
A history of study?
Yes.
Have you written reports and papers for people to learn?
I've written multiple blogs, done multiple presentations, webinars. Some of my blog posts have become peer-reviewed articles.
Okay. Is it sufficient to simply look at a report that is generated by Cellebrite or Axiom or any other service and make conclusions just on the report?
I don't believe it is, no.
Why do you think that's imprudent?
Sorry?
Why do you think that is not prudent to simply rely on a report?
Objection, Your Honor.
We're going around to answer.
The tools are very good at surfacing data, but I believe it's up to the examiner to understand what that data means and to provide context to the information which the tool itself can't give.
And when you were considering the hash value and determining whether or not you thought there was anything wrong with the data, aside from the hash value, how do you do that?
How do I do
How
what?
do you make a determination whether or not this has integrity, the data hasn't been tampered with, so to speak?
Okay. So, notwithstanding the hash value, I'd be looking for issues with the data that don't make sense. In this particular case, there was lots of data points that all appeared to work together. Like you would see one artifact change in one database and an artifact would change somewhere else. And it all just made perfect sense in how it was functioning. That kind of leads you to believe that it's not been tampered with, or the person tampering with it did an exceptional job to be able to cover all of these different tracks and make it undetectable.
Did you try to summarize that perspective in the part of the report that wasn't read to you on examination?
I did.
Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty if there was any data integrity issues in the information you reviewed?
I don't believe there was any.
It was characterized on examination there was a dispute about the time origin of the search, how long to die in code. Do you remember being asked the question about a dispute?
Yes.
Have you, in your studies and in your position, is there any viable dispute in the forensic data scientific community about that issue?
I don't believe there is anymore.
Now, you got involved in this case because you received a complaint from a consumer.
I received a question from a consumer, yes.
And you attempted to resolve that?
Correct.
Sustained is to affirm.
Other than that source, have you received any information, feedback, opinions that would make this issue in any way a dispute?
I'll allow that.
I'm sorry, could you rephrase the question?
Other than that one person, that one consumer, have you received any information in the forensic community which you're part of?
Oh.
Any data, any information that would suggest that your conclusions are in dispute?
Yeah, I received a very similar question from an examiner in Europe. Fairly similar circumstances with a case and with a timestamp that didn't make sense, that was originating from the same database. I applied the same logic and theory to his question, and he confirmed it solved the issue for him. It all made sense then.
And since then, has in your world, academic and research world, forensic data science, other than the person who originally raised the question, has there been any dispute brought to you by anybody about your conclusions about when this search actually happened?
No. If anything, I've heard people who have confirmed the research that I did.
Do you know Jessica Hyde?
I do.
Is she well known in the forensic community?
She is.
You were asked questions about your law enforcement background and the fact that Cellebrite is used as a forensic tool oftentimes by law enforcement.
Yes.
Did you go into your company's software and change it to accommodate law enforcement?
No, definitely not.
Would you ever do such a thing?
No.
Why wouldn't you do something like that?
Aside from being unethical to change the data in that way, this is an artifact that is easily validated by any examiner. And if I was to tamper it for the purposes of changing the outcome of the case, it would be detected by all of our customers immediately and would destroy the reputation of Cellebrite, which I've got no intention of doing.
Before a prior proceeding, the printout from the software, when it was showing the timestamp of the Safari search, was it labeled something in particular before?
The Cellebrite search
Yes.
was labeled last visited time.
Last what?
Last visited time.
And when it was labeled last visited time, did it show 227 on the report?
It did.
Cellebrite, after research and consideration, removed that label?
We removed the timestamp when we determined that it was not relevant to the last time that that page was visited.
Why was it important to remove that timestamp from the program and the software?
It was clearly causing confusion.
Does the company have concerns when consumers are confused about information?
Of course, yes.
Do companies have concerns if a consumer tries to manipulate the use of that information?
Of course.
Are companies concerned that a label could be misleading for somebody who may not have a higher level of experience?
Yes.
When that decision was made to change that for clarification, do you make that solely by yourself?
No, I did not.
Who do you consult with and who's part of that decision process?
So again, after my research, I passed the results of my research to the Forensic Research Group. This is a team based at Cellebrite whose sole job is to do the research, do the coding to make sure that what we're giving to customers is correct. They spent some time validating the research that I did, verifying that my research was correct, and then they were responsible for making the change based on the updated research.
It was suggested that a separate software program, not the company you work for, Cellebrite, but Axiom, reflects this search as deleted. That's not entirely accurate, is it?
Sustained is to affirm.
Running an Axiom program, would it reflect this search as deleted?
Yes, and it is a deleted search.
Does it have a label on it?
It does.
Is that carved?
Yes, it would be.
Now, are you familiar with the Axiom Artifact Reference Guide when it talks about the dangers of relying on the timestamp?
I'm not familiar with it referencing dangers, but I'm aware of the document.
Are you aware of the reference guide when it talks about Safari suspended state tabs
Yes.
and offers that since these are local tab states, results from this artifact may contain an earlier date and time compared to the results in the Safari history artifact if iCloud Safari synchronization?
Sustained.
Are you aware of the reference guide?
I am.
Are you aware that it cautions that a timestamp can be misinterpreted?
Sustained.
Sir, when you came to your opinion that the search for how long to die in the cold at 6:23 and 6:24 in the morning of January 29, 2022, was the time that they were actually inputted, not 2:27. In forming your opinion, did you consider both Cellebrite and Axiom software?
I did.
Did you consider other tools as well?
Yes, my own.
And tell us a little bit about your own tool.
Again, this is a tool I've been writing for approximately 5 or 6 years now. Partially for fun, partially for research purposes. And it's a tool I make available to other examiners globally.
And sir, when you were trying to examine these searches that in your opinion were 6:23 and 6:24 a.m., did you ever try to test it yourself and actually take a phone so you could either prove or disprove to yourself that that earlier timestamp didn't mean it was the time that it was searched?
Oh, definitely. Yes. That's the kind of thing I do all the time when verifying artifacts.
And in your opinion, is that helpful in understanding how a timestamp earlier could relate to a later search?
Exactly, very helpful.
Would you be willing to do a live demonstration for us on the screen and show
I can.
us how that works?
Yes.
Okay. How long would that take?
Probably about 5 minutes.
Okay. Could you show us?
Of course.
Okay.
Mr. Whiffin, I'd like to ask you a couple of general questions.
Yes.
You mentioned with reference to location data that the scope of identifying a location of a phone can change depending on what information the phone is receiving.
I'm sorry.
Yep. I'll try
Rephrase.
again. You've shown us a number of graphs and exhibits
Yes.
that show different circles. Some might be smaller, some might be larger than others.
Yes.
And you shared with us that location information is being received from a number of different sources.
Yes.
Can you remind us again what can affect that location data as far as receiving some high accuracy, mid, and low level? What could affect the receipt of that information?
So primarily, the requesting application defines how accurate it needs the data. iOS Location Services then determines the best technology to use in order to work out that location. And it can use GPS information for the most accurate. It can use Wi-Fi cell sighting, so it understands the Wi-Fi networks that it can detect close by, and it knows where those networks are. And from that, it can derive where it itself is. Similar idea with both Bluetooth beacons and with cell tower technology. It understands where the cell towers are, it understands where the Bluetooth beacons are, and if it can see those particular cell towers or beacons, it knows roughly where itself must be.
You share with us there are some factors that can affect that location data,
Yes.
in addition to being in a building, like a house or a business. That's one way it can be affected?
It is.
And there are other ways as well, isn't there?
There are.
And could you share again the other ways that location information could change?
Yeah, the weather can play an effect on it, the geography of the area, whether it's in a rural or urban environment, other kinds of interference. If there are other items close by that are emitting electrical interference, it could affect the location data as well.
How about a body being on the phone? Could that affect location data?
Ask it differently.
If a human being was covering the phone so it wasn't exposed to the air, could that affect the location data?
I'm going on.
I believe it could, yes.
You were shown Exhibit 40. It was one select piece of your report. It was a graph. With the court's permission, I'd like to show Exhibit 40.
Yes.
Exhibit 40 has two circles, one darker, one white.
Yes,
And do you remember being asked questions about this particular exhibit?
I do.
And in addition to this exhibit, is there other information in your report that wasn't shown to you that would put this in context?
There is.
This exhibit is to demonstrate a window of when location data was taken for a particular time.
Watch the form of the question, Mr.
This photograph, what does it represent?
There were two particular time periods of approximately 5 seconds where multiple records showed identical latitude and longitude. So the same center point of the radius, but the radius themselves differed. So in this case, the white circle or the white circles show the lowest accuracy and the highest accuracy for 5 records that were all within a 5-second time period. And that shared the same latitude longitude as the central point.
Looking at this snapshot of 5 seconds, is this still consistent with your opinion that to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, you opine that the cell phone was in the flagpole area the entire evening of January 29th, 2022?
I'm going to allow it.
Yes, it still aligns with my opinion.
When you provide a report with all the different graphs and explanations, do you expect it's going to be shared with the defense attorneys?
Of course.
And you understand in this case everything is shared.
Of course.
And when you shared your report with this piece of information, did you include a summary chart that wasn't shown to you on examination?
I believe I did, yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Showing you your
Thank you.
report. You recognize your report?
I do.
And what page are you on?
22.
Do you recognize anything in particular as far as a chart on that page?
I do. There's a chart at the top with the location data that was used to create the image shown.
Does that chart help explain this photograph?
It does.
Then move that chart into evidence.
Any objection, Mr. Alessi?
No objection, Your Honor. With the court's permission, I'd like Ms. Gilman to show us the chart.
Yes.
How long of a time period does that photograph encompass?
The photograph has got 2 time periods of 5 seconds each, which are approximately 40 minutes apart.
And what does this show us? Can you explain the chart that goes along with that photograph that was shown to you?
So this chart is, or I should say, the map shows 5 of the records from this particular chart. But we can see that all of these records have a consecutive timestamp 1 second apart. The latitude and longitude is identical for all of these records, but at the same time, the accuracy drops from 43 meters to 7 meters within that same 8-second time period. The idea was to demonstrate that if you had one of these records on its own, if you only had the 43-meter accurate record, for example, then the phone could be anywhere within that 43-meter radius. But as time goes on, the accuracy is refined. The same central point is used by iOS, but we've now got an accuracy of 7 meters. And again, if we were to say that the phone is anywhere within that 7 meters, it's a much more accurate representation, according to the data, than the 43 meters would be. And with an 8-second time period, if the device was actually moving during that time, I wouldn't expect to see the latitude and longitude remain exactly the same. There'd be some degree of movement in the coordinates.
When you're producing location information in the circles that represent the location change, small, medium, large, at different times, does this chalk help represent that there can be changes in the location data, but the item can remain dormant?
So ask that differently, Mr. Brown.
What is the exact point of the demonstration or this chalk? How does that help us understand the movement or the lack of movement of a cell phone?
So I believe it demonstrates the fact that the phone is constantly refining the location data or the accuracy of the location data, even though it's using the same central point, the latitude and longitude, as the reference point. It doesn't necessarily mean the device had to move.
If I could go back to Exhibit 40, please. So looking at your photograph that you were asked about, there are two different circles, one dark and one light.
Yes.
And those circles are in different spots.
Yes.
Based on the chart you just showed us, are both of those different color circles consistent with a phone being in the same spot and not moving?
The previous chart that was shown only accounts for the white circles on this map. And it only shows the highest and the lowest accuracy. 20 minutes later, there was another similar scenario where there were multiple records with the same central GPS coordinates, but with different accuracy levels, and that's what was used for the black circles. Importantly, in my opinion, they all overlap, so it's possible that the device is somewhere in between those two circles for the duration of the time.
Now, finally, I want to turn back to the phone that was attributed to Jennifer McCabe. And you had shared with us your opinions about the time in which the searches at 623 and 624 were made.
Correct.
And I asked if you could just show us live right now how it works that a person can open a tab, and there's a timestamp, a time when it's open, and then make a later search but still retain the original timestamp.
Yes.
Is that something you can do for us?
It is, yeah.
Okay. With the court's permission, I'd ask Mr. Whiffin to give
Yes.
us a live demonstration of this.
Do you want the light off, Mr. Whiffin?
The light off would be better, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
Okay. First of all, I will highlight on the left side of the screen here, this is actually a live representation of what I have on a phone that's in front of me. So as I move this around, you can actually see on the screen that the screen refreshes. I'll also point out the iOS version here is 15.2.1, which matches that from Jennifer McCabe's phone. On the right side of the screen is the tool which I spoke about earlier, the one that I've been writing for several years. I make it available for free for any examiner who wants to download it and research primarily iOS devices. Here, you can see I've got a live connection to the device. So every file and folder that is on the device I can see within this directory view as you would normally see on a regular computer. And we can see the browserstate.db database. If I open that database up, you can see there are 4 tables, one of which is called tabs.
Mr. Whiffin, I hate to interrupt you. Can we make this larger? I know jurors earlier were hoping
I can try to.
have a larger view of what's up there. Is that going to impact your demonstration in any way?
It shouldn't. I should be able to work around it, thank you.
Is that better for the jurors?
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
It's just a little closer.
Oh, let me pull forward.
Turn the air conditioning on.
So at this moment in time, the tabs table has 2 records. I'm just going to ask you to ignore those for now. They're from a previous demonstration. I can't delete those without taking longer to do this demonstration. If I go back onto the phone itself, just takes a second to refresh and open up Safari. And I can open up a new tab. What I will just do now is search for the time that we're on now, so 14:10, and hit go. So right now that page is loaded, sure. And I can go back into the database and just hit reload. That will bring the most recent version of the database from the device back onto my computer and show it back in this window in exactly the same way as I was doing it a second ago. And you can see right now there's still only 2 records. So the fact that I did a new tab and a new search has had no effect on what I can see. This is different to on previous versions of iOS, where you would already now see a new record with the 1410 search, which I'd made. I'm then going to do another search. Hopefully it's going to catch up with me. It's now 1411, so I'll do a search for 1411. Okay, we can see the page is loaded, and I can go back over to this tool and reload the database. We still don't have a new record that shows that a search is being conducted. I'll just take the time to do another little search and just do 1411X. Reload the page again. Still, nothing's appeared. I can even close down Safari, just minimize it into the background, and then bring it back into the foreground by just pressing the Safari icon. I can hit reload again. We still don't have a new record, and I can do a further search for now 1412. 1412 is loaded, and I can reload the page. Still no records present. I can now go into Safari and just close the tab. So now that tab is closed, and I can just prove that. So that tab is now closed, and I can go back over here and reload, and you'll see a new record has appeared. I'm just going to change the time zone just so that this shows accurately, and tell my tool to treat the timestamps as Eastern time. So we look at this particular record. You can see the title is 1412. That's the last item that I searched for. You can see the URL is the google.ca /search 1412. Again, that is the content that I searched for. And then we see this field here, the last viewed timestamp. And the time here still says 1410 because that's the time that I first loaded the tab. The fact that I navigated between, the fact that I minimized and reopened Safari, bears no relevance to this timestamp. It is purely the timestamp that tab was created or brought back into focus.
To an untrained eye, can that development of a timestamp become confusing?
Yes, the name last viewed time clearly has implications that would make you believe that it was the time that the page was last viewed. It's a very simple test that I just demonstrated to prove that that's not the case.
Is there any other reason that Cellebrite removed that process as timestamp other than to clarify that issue?
Objection, Your Honor.
No, I'll allow it.
Purely because we determined it was unreliable to use as a time that the page was last viewed.
If an examiner simply made a report from Axiom or Cellebrite or another software but didn't have the time or skill to actually go into the data, could they be easily confused by this?
Yes, the way that Cellebrite provided this information showed as last viewed timestamp. The way that Axiom provides this data is called last interaction time. So there is some leeway there to misunderstand it less from Axiom because it's talking about tab interaction rather than a web page that was last viewed.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
All right, thank you. The lights on, please. Mr. Alessi?
Briefly, Your Honor, if I may. Thank you.
Do you want Mr. Whiffin to take this down?
Yes, please, Your Honor. Good afternoon, and hello again, Mr. Whiffin.
Good afternoon.
Magnet forensics Axiom still shows a 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp on its forensic tool, correct?
Correct.
And Magnet Forensic is a reliable forensic tool company, correct?
As reliable as they come, yes.
The demonstration that you just performed, when did you create it?
The demonstration?
What you just,
Like literally just now, as I was doing it live.
so you
Is how
just
you mean?
created the demonstration now live on the stand?
That particular demonstration, yes.
Yeah. So, that demonstration, therefore, was created after Cellebrite removed the 2:27:40 timestamp from all of its tool programs, correct?
No, incorrect. I mean, that demonstration I just provided was right now, it was live. Initially, when I did these tests, I did the same kind of experiment, the same type of testing back in late 2023, I believe. And after I did those tests and used that research, that is when Cellebrite removed the timestamp.
Maybe my question wasn't clear. Let me
Yes.
see if I could rephrase it. The demonstration that you just gave, when did you prepare it? The demonstration, not just the demonstration that you just showed on the screen. When did you create that demonstration on your computer?
Hey, again, I've been doing this demonstration for 2 years.
My question, again, is the demonstration you just gave.
Yes.
When was the last time you altered that demonstration?
Other than to use different search terms, it's the same demonstration.
I'll try it a different
Yes, please.
way. When was the last time you altered in any way the demonstration you just gave?
Right now.
So you altered it right now, and that alteration was made after Cellebrite had removed the 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp from its programs, correct?
Yes. Okay.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Whiffin, you're all set, so
Thank you.
very much.